The first person I saw when I stepped into the reception hall wasn't my husband. It was my mother. She stood near the champagne fountain, pretending to smile while scanning the room like a predator looking for weakness. Most people would have thought she was admiring the decorations. I knew better. I'd spent 30 years watching that exact expression appear right before she ruined birthdays, graduations, vacations, and every major life event she could get her hands on. The funny thing was, I wasn't nervous. Not even a little. My husband was across the room laughing with a group of alien engineers from his construction company. His silver-blue skin practically glowed beneath the reception lights, and every few minutes he looked over at me with the same ridiculous smile that had made me fall in love with him 2 years earlier. Most people thought human-alien relationships were complicated. They were. But compared to dealing with my mother, interspecies romance was surprisingly easy. He was honest. She wasn't. That alone solved about 90% of our problems. When we first started dating, Mom had insisted he was secretly using me for citizenship privileges. When she discovered his species didn't even need human citizenship, she switched to claiming I was using him for money. Then she learned I earned more than he did. That forced her to invent entirely new conspiracy theories. My favorite was when she told relatives that he'd probably been sent by an alien government to spy on our family. As if our family possessed secrets worth stealing. The man once spent 3 hours helping my uncle figure out how to operate a toaster. If he was a spy, he deserved a refund on his training. My husband walked over and slipped an arm around my waist. "You've got that look again," he said. "What look?" "The one that says you're planning something." I smiled. "I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about." He laughed immediately. That was another reason I loved him. He always knew when I was lying. A month earlier, I'd finally accepted a simple truth. My mother was going to create a scene at the wedding. Not might. Would. The only question was how spectacular it would be. So instead of trying to stop her, I planned for it. Actually, I planned very thoroughly. Several wedding guests weren't guests at all. 3 were professional comedians. 4 were actors. 2 were pretending to be journalists from an interplanetary lifestyle magazine. There was also a hidden production crew controlling presentation screens positioned throughout the reception hall. My husband had nearly choked on his coffee when I explained everything. "You hired fake reporters?" "Of course." "And comedians?" "Naturally." "And a slideshow team?" That was the inexpensive part. At first he'd thought I was overreacting. Then he met my mother. After that, he started helping. Together we'd spend months collecting photographs, videos, voice recordings, and evidence of every ridiculous thing she'd done over the years. There was enough material for an entire documentary series. Maybe 2 seasons. The reception continued peacefully for almost 40 minutes. Honestly, that was longer than I expected. Guests danced. Relatives chatted. Alien and human families mingled surprisingly well. I almost started wondering whether my mother had decided to behave herself. Then I saw it. The microphone. Her eyes locked onto it from across the room. A slow smile spread across her face. The exact same smile she'd worn before announcing my college acceptance wasn't impressive because lots of people get accepted. The exact same smile she'd worn before introducing my ex-boyfriend to another woman at Thanksgiving. The exact same smile she'd worn before telling my boss embarrassing childhood stories at a company dinner. My husband followed my gaze. "Oh no." "Oh yes." The comedians quietly moved into position. The fake reporters checked their cameras. The production crew prepared their controls. My mother began walking toward the microphone stand with the confidence of a woman convinced she was about to become the star of the evening. She had no idea she was right. Just not in the way she imagined. I squeezed my husband's hand and smiled. Showtime. My mother reached the microphone with the confidence of someone who believed destiny had finally handed her a stage. The music faded. Conversation stopped. More than 200 guests turned toward her. For one glorious second, she looked genuinely happy. That should have worried everyone. She tapped the microphone twice. Hello, everyone. A few polite responses echoed through the hall. I know this is supposed to be a wedding celebration, but I simply cannot stay silent any longer. I took a slow sip of champagne. My husband looked at me. You are way too calm. Years of practice. Mom dramatically placed a hand over her chest. The truth deserves to be heard. Several relatives immediately groaned. Apparently, I wasn't the only one familiar with her speeches. She pointed directly at me. My daughter scammed this man into marrying her. The room fell silent. A few guests gasped. My husband's alien coworkers exchanged confused looks. Mom continued confidently. She's manipulative. She's selfish. She's been tricking people her entire life. 3 seconds later, the giant presentation screen behind her lit up. Bright music exploded from hidden speakers. A massive title appeared across the screen. Fact-checking MOM, Episode 1. The audience blinked. Mom froze. What? A slideshow immediately began. The first image showed Mom attempting to demonstrate a cooking tutorial she had uploaded to the internet 5 years earlier. The next photos showed the result. A completely destroyed kitchen. Smoke. Burned cabinets. A melted toaster. Someone in the crowd snorted. Then another person laughed. Then 20 more joined them. A comedian disguised as a wedding guest suddenly stood up. We have obtained exclusive footage of the suspect's relationship with household appliances. The audience burst into laughter. Mom stared in horror. Who said that? The comedian sat down as if nothing had happened. The slideshow continued. Photo after photo appeared. Mom trapped inside a folding massage chair. Mom accidentally locking herself in a garden shed. Mom attempting an online business selling luxury pet jewelry for fish. Even I had forgotten about the fish jewelry phase. A fake reporter rushed forward holding a microphone. Ma'am, would you care to comment on the collapse of your aquatic fashion empire? The audience howled. Mom's face turned bright red. This isn't funny. Unfortunately for her, everyone disagreed. She pointed at me again. She's lazy. The presentation immediately changed. Another title appeared. Accusation number 2. A photograph filled the screen. It showed me working late at a medical research center. Then another. Then another. Years of achievements flashed across the display. Educational awards. Volunteer projects. Community programs. Meanwhile, captions beneath each image displayed what Mom had been doing during those same periods. Most involved reality television. One involved trying to become a professional crystal healer after watching 3 online videos. The laughter became deafening. My husband lowered his head and tried desperately not to laugh. His shoulders shook violently. You're enjoying this way too much, I whispered. I really am. Mom grabbed the microphone with both hands. You all think this is a joke? A second fake reporter appeared beside her. Ma'am, the audience has voted and the current results indicate yes. Even some of my relatives were laughing now. Alien guests began recording everything on their devices. One elderly alien was laughing so hard his decorative head crest kept changing colors. The entire reception hall felt less like a wedding and more like a comedy show. Exactly as planned? Mom looked around the room searching for support. Instead, she found smiling faces, laughter, and giant screens preparing the next surprise. For the first time all evening, uncertainty appeared in her eyes. And we were only getting started. Most people would have accepted defeat after being publicly fact-checked by an entire wedding reception. My mother was not most people. She tightened her grip on the microphone and squared her shoulders like a general preparing for battle. Fine, she snapped. Maybe she's hardworking. That doesn't change the fact that she's manipulative. A collective woohoo rolled through the crowd. The giant screen immediately flashed. Accusation number 3. My mother's eyes widened. No. No, don't. The slideshow started anyway. The first image showed her dramatically lying on a sofa wrapped in 4 blankets while claiming she had contracted a rare jungle disease. The caption underneath read, "Actual diagnosis, mild seasonal allergies." The next photo appeared. Then another. And another. For nearly 3 minutes the audience watched a collection of her famous health emergencies. The time she claimed she was dying because she ate expired yogurt. The time she called an ambulance after reading an online article and convincing herself she had 7 different diseases simultaneously. The time she announced her final wishes before discovering she simply needed reading glasses. The room exploded with laughter. Even some of the older relatives were wiping tears from their eyes. One of the fake reporters stepped forward. "We're receiving reports that the patient's condition has stabilized after years of surviving completely imaginary illnesses." The crowd roared. My mother looked ready to launch the microphone into orbit. Then she pointed at me again. "She's always been selfish." Another screen transition appeared instantly. Breaking news: selfish daughter spends years helping others. Photos filled the screen. Volunteer projects. Charity work. Late-night research programs. Community outreach events. Meanwhile, side-by-side images showed my mother attempting increasingly bizarre career changes. There was the month she tried becoming a motivational speaker despite having no audience. The week she attempted professional pet astrology. The unforgettable period when she tried becoming a social media influencer and accidentally live-streamed herself arguing with a vacuum cleaner. The audience completely lost control. Alien guests were laughing so hard they were leaning on each other for support. One elderly engineer nearly fell out of his chair. My husband wasn't doing much better. His silver eyes sparkled with amusement as he watched the chaos unfold. Then something unexpected happened. He stood up. The room gradually quieted. Unlike my mother, he didn't grab the microphone dramatically. He simply accepted it when one of the comedians handed it to him. "I'd like to say something." The reception hall became still. My husband looked at me first. Only me. The laughter faded into silence. "When I met her, I wasn't looking for a relationship." His voice was calm and sincere. "I was living on a planet far from home, trying to build a career, trying to figure out where I belong." He smiled. "Then she walked into my life and made everything easier." My face immediately grew warm. Guests listened quietly. "She is the kindest person I've ever met. She works harder than anyone I know. She helps people even when she's exhausted." He glanced toward my mother. "And despite years of criticism, embarrassment, and negativity, she still chooses kindness." The room remained silent. Not uncomfortable silence. The kind that happens when people genuinely care about what's being said. "I didn't marry her because I was tricked." A few guests chuckled. "I married her because every day with her is better than the day before." My heart nearly melted. He reached for my hand. "I married her because she makes me laugh." More smiles appeared around the room. "I married her because she makes me brave." His voice softened. "And I married her because I love her." The audience erupted into applause. For a moment the wedding stopped being a comedy show. It became exactly what it was supposed to be. A celebration of love. I wrapped my arms around him and kissed him while the crowd cheered. When we finally pulled apart, I glanced toward my mother. For the first time all evening, she looked completely lost. She searched the room for support. No one moved. No one agreed. No one came to her rescue. Because the truth was standing right in front of them. And for once, her drama wasn't the center of attention anymore. The applause lasted nearly a full minute. My husband and I stood together in the center of the reception hall while guests cheered, laughed, and raised their glasses. The atmosphere had completely transformed. What had started as another attempt by my mother to hijack a major life event had become the most entertaining wedding anyone in attendance would ever experience. I thought the evening was over. Then the production crew activated the final surprise. The giant screen flickered. Dramatic orchestral music filled the room. A golden trophy appeared on the display. The words beneath it read, Lifetime Achievement Award for Family Drama. The audience immediately burst into laughter. My mother closed her eyes. You've got to be kidding me. The slideshow began. Over the next several minutes, guests watched a highlight reel of her greatest disasters. There was the time she accidentally called the police on herself while trying to report a suspicious person. The suspicious person had turned out to be her reflection in a store window. Then came footage of her attempting yoga while following an online instructor. That session ended with a broken lamp, a terrified cat, and a visit from the building manager. The crowd laughed harder with every image. Even relatives who normally defended her were struggling to breathe. One of my uncles laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his chair. An elderly alien guest actually requested a copy of the presentation for historical preservation purposes. The fake reporters conducted mock interviews. How does it feel to witness such a legendary career? What advice would you give future generations of professional drama enthusiasts? By now, even my mother seemed exhausted. The fight had completely left her. For the first time in my life, she wasn't controlling the room. The room was controlling her. The slideshow finally ended with a standing ovation from the guests. Then something unexpected happened. I walked over to her. The laughter gradually faded. She looked up at me cautiously. I could have humiliated her further. Part of me probably deserved that opportunity after years of public embarrassment. Instead, I sat beside her. You know, I said quietly, all I ever wanted was for you to be happy for me. She looked away. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then she sighed. I honestly thought I was helping. I almost laughed at the absurdity of that statement. But for once she sounded sincere. Well, I said, smiling slightly, your speech definitely helped the entertainment budget. To my surprise, she laughed. A small laugh. But a real one. My husband joined us. His calm presence had a way of lowering everyone's defenses. Even hers. After a few awkward moments, she shook her head. I have to admit it. What? That prank was impressive. My husband grinned. I helped. She pointed at him. I knew you were involved. That finally broke the remaining tension. The reception restarted. The comedians revealed themselves. The actors dropped their disguises. The fake reporters began interviewing guests about the most chaotic wedding in the sector. Alien and human attendees flooded the dance floor together. Music filled the hall once again. As the evening continued, I realized something important. The victory wasn't that my mother had lost. The victory was that she had failed to ruin the happiest day of my life. For years I'd allowed her behavior to dictate my emotions. Not anymore. Now I had a husband who loved me. A future I was excited about. And a room full of people celebrating that future. Later that night, my husband and I shared our first dance beneath glowing lights suspended above the reception floor. The universe felt a little smaller. A little warmer. A little brighter. As the song ended, everyone applauded. Then, from across the room, my mother suddenly stood up and reached toward a nearby microphone. The entire hall froze. A second later, the giant screen instantly activated. Bright red warning lights flashed. A message appeared in enormous letters. Warning, drama detected. The room exploded. Guests laughed harder than they had all evening. Even my mother doubled over laughing. And surrounded by friends, family, aliens, comedians, and one incredibly wonderful husband, I laughed right along with them. For the first time in a very long time, everyone was finally on the same side.